What's up, guys? Corey Evan from the SHR Weekender. Hey, next week is the Classified, so if you spot a hilarious classified ad in print or online, print screen Command Shift 4 or take a picture of it and send it to facebook.com/SHR Weekender. I look forward to next weekend's Classifieds, and I hope you'll join me.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Corey Evan, coming up in the Weekender. The investigation into the crash of a Germanwings plane in Europe reveals major drama. Apple CEO Tim Cook intervenes in Indiana's gay and lesbian affairs in our continuing battle against global socialism. Hello, Okeechobee Police? Yeah, I'm a baddie who's trying to get your tax data in crime and pinheads. Can you please come arrest me? Thanks. Drew Carey is officiating at one big fat game show wedding. And we're taking gaming consoles and sweaty coaches for a spin on the wheel of misfortune. Grab yourself a cold drink, ladies and gentlemen. It's a hot one on the Weekender, and it starts now.
Making sense of the week's news and the most of your weekend. From Southern California, this is the SHR Weekender with Corey Evan.
Whew! I'm not lying, ladies and gentlemen. It really is a hot one here in SoCal. But nonetheless, I'm glad you joined me for the SHR Weekender on this Saturday, March 28th, 2015. Let's get right to it. I've got more updates on that Germanwings plane crash. This coming to us from Fox News. Germanwings co-pilot Andreas Lubitz ripped up a doctor's note excusing him from work on the day he crashed a crowded passenger plane in a mountain, according to prosecutors yesterday, and was undergoing treatment at a German hospital where doctors last saw him 2 weeks before the crash. University Hospital Dusseldorf acknowledged treating Lubitz, but dismissed as incorrect media reports that it was for depression. The facility refused to say what Lubitz was being treated for, citing patient confidentiality. The hospital said yesterday Lubitz visited the clinic for diagnostic clarifications in February, and most recently on March 10th. Prosecutors in Germany reported Friday that Lubitz was being treated for a medical illness that he hid from his employer. Investigators found torn-up doctor's notes, including one declaring Lubitz unfit for work on the day of the crash, and other papers in searches at the home of his parents and at an apartment he kept in Dusseldorf. The evidence could provide clues as to why he apparently deliberately crashed the Airbus A320 into the French Alps Tuesday morning, killing all 150 people on board. Dusseldorf prosecutor Christoph Kumpa said the doctor's note for the day of the crash indicated the co-pilot, quote, was declared by a medical doctor unfit to work. Kumpa's spokesman Ralph Herrenbrook said in a written statement that the note, quote, supports the current preliminary assessment that the deceased hid his illness from his employer and colleagues. Such sick notes from doctors excusing employees from work are common in Germany and issued even for minor illnesses. Herrenbrook didn't reveal details of what illness Lubitz was suffering from. On Thursday, the German magazine Der Spiegel quoted friends of Lubitz as saying the pilot had taken a break from training because of depression and burnout. After completing his training, Lubitz spent an 11-month waiting period working as a flight attendant before becoming a co-pilot with Germanwings, Lufthansa's budget subsidiary, in September 2013. And the UK Daily Mirror is reporting that Mr. Lubitz split up with his girlfriend the day before the tragedy actually took place. So, ladies and gentlemen, any accusations that the guy had depression could possibly be true, because a bad breakup can do that to a person. But gents, if this has happened to you, I would say take that sick note and give it right to your boss. Take the day off, go to a movie, go eat some ice cream, do something, but don't go to work if you've just broken up with your girlfriend or fiance. Because when the doctor says that you're unfit to go to work, chances are you are. Stay with us here at SHR Media. We will keep you up to date on the Germanwings investigation as details come up, either in our next report or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/SHR Weekender. Next up, Italy's highest court acquitted American Amanda Knox of murder Friday, ending her legal saga. Knox and her Italian ex-boyfriend Raffaele Solicito, who was also acquitted Friday, had been convicted, acquitted, and convicted in 3 different trials over the 2007 murder of Knox's flatmate Meredith Kircher in the Italian university town of Perugia. The ruling Friday came after a nearly 8-year legal battle on 2 continents that first sent Knox and Solicito to an Italian prison for Kircher's murder. The court found the 2 guilty in December 2009 of murder and sexual assault, and sentenced Knox to 26 years in prison, including 1 year for slander, and Solosito to 25 years. Both were acquitted and freed in 2011 after spending nearly 4 years in prison. Knox returned to her hometown of Seattle following the acquittal, but was then tried and convicted in absentia and ordered a new appeals trial in 2014. Lawyers for 27-year-old Knox and Solosito, who was also appealing the latest conviction for the murder, made a final appeal in court Friday saying there were errors of colossal proportions in the guilty verdict. Attorney Giulia Bongiorno dissected the 2014 Florence Appeals Court decision to show what she called errors of fact and logic that resulted in a new prison sentence of 28.5 years for Knox, while upholding 25 years for Solosito. Judges at the High Court of Cassation began deliberating shortly after noon. A decision to confirm the convictions could have resulted in an extradition request for Knox, who is currently free in the U.S. She has said she would never willingly return to Italy. In her closing arguments, Bongiorno said even Knox's original statement to police, which was never entered as evidence and was later changed, exonerated her client. Knox, who along with Kircher had been studying in Perugia, had initially accused a Congolese bar owner of the murder. She also initially told investigators through a translator that she was home the night that Kircher was killed and had to cover her ears to drown out her screams. Bongiorno said she believed Knox's statement was coerced, but that even if the High Court chooses to consider it, Solosito figures nowhere in her story. Israel announced Friday that it would release Palestinian tax revenues frozen this year as a punitive measure after the Palestinian Authority's move to join the International Criminal Court. From the AP, a statement from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said he had accepted the recommendation of Defense Minister Moshe Yaalon, the Army and Security agencies, to release the frozen funds. The Palestinian Authority moved to join the Hague-based court on the last day of 2014. Israel swiftly responded by suspending monthly transfers of tax revenues it collects on behalf of the Palestinian administration in keeping with the 1993 Oslo Accords. The freeze on revenues that exceed $120 million a month was costing the Palestinian Authority 70% of its budget, according to Palestinian Finance Minister Shukri Bishara. The Israeli move was met with widespread international criticism and increased concern that the chronically cash-strapped Palestinian Authority could collapse entirely and tumble the region into anarchy. Similar concerns were voiced by Israeli military and intelligence officials who advised the Prime Minister to release the money to avoid undermining Palestinian stability. Some $600 million short since the freeze went into effect, the Palestinian Authority has been paying its 180,000 civil servants 60% of their salaries and had moved to slash expenditure of government ministries by half. This week, the cabinet approved an emergency budget starting April 1st, according to the authority's official news agency, WAFA. On Friday, Netanyahu ordered the release of the money accrued in recent months, although Israel would deduct a portion to offset Palestinian debts for service provided by Israel, including electricity, water, and hospitalization. Last month, the Israel Electric Corporation briefly cut off power to parts of the West Bank to protest a massive $500 million debt. The decision to release the funds comes after Netanyahu's victory in last week's election, which may have freed him politically to respond to persistent security officials' recommendations to resume the tax transfers. In U.S. news from the Chicago Tribune, someone may have improperly tapped a gas line before an explosion that leveled 3 apartment buildings and injured nearly 24 people, according to Mayor Bill de Blasio, as firefighters soaked the still smoldering buildings and police searched for at least 2 missing people. The number of people injured in Thursday's blast rose from 19 to 22, with 4 critically injured. Police were searching for at least 2 people, Nicholas Figueroa, a bowling alley worker who had been on a date at a sushi restaurant in the building where the destruction was centered, and Moises Lucan, a worker there. Authorities were also exploring whether a third person was unaccounted for, Chief of Detectives Robert Boyce said. Preliminary evidence suggests an explosion amid plumbing and gas work inside the building was to blame. Inspectors with Utility Consolidated Edison had been to the East Village building to check on ongoing work to upgrade gas service. The utility said the work didn't pass inspection, so the new gas line was locked to ensure it wouldn't be used, and inspectors gave instructions and left. Con Ed said inspectors didn't smell gas. But 15 minutes later, the sushi restaurant owner smelled gas and called the landlord, who called a general contractor, Boyce said. No one called 911 or Con Ed, however, de Blasio said. The contractor, Dilbert Kukic, and the owner's son went into the basement and opened a door, and then the explosion happened, burning their faces, Boyce said. The building had an existing gas line intended to serve the sushi restaurant. The work underway was to put in a bigger line to serve the entire building. That according to Con Ed President Craig Ivey. As for whether the largely vacant apartments were getting gas from the line, he said, quote, "That's a great question." In short, ladies and gentlemen, that means give him a couple of days to figure out exactly what he's doing, and then he'll get back to us. Wonderful. And in the UK, the entertainment industry is going through some tough times right now. At least two groups in that industry are. The BBC having terminated Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear amid a row that happened between him and producer Oisin Timon, which a lot of social media-ites are blaming Mr. Timon for, although Clarkson is quoted as saying that the whole thing is not Timon's fault. And as I posted this week on our Facebook page, facebook.com/SHR Weekender, Piers Morgan sent a response to Mr. Clarkson, giving him 10 tips on how he can get through this difficult time of being terminated and whatnot. Essentially, he's recommending that he take a vacation and not answer any phone calls from ITV or Channel 4 offering a new show just yet. Which I'm quite proud of Mr. Morgan in this case. I don't usually like the guy because of his politics and how badly he treats people in general, but I think he's being quite cordial to Mr. Clarkson here. So, Mr. Morgan, that's one hand clapping at least. But you get no more than that, okay? Besides, a lot of hands are clapping for Mr. Zayn Malik, although now he is no longer with One Direction. In fact, a lot of workers in the UK are so upset over Zayn Malik leaving One Direction that they've even asked for time off from work to deal with it. It's just a musical act, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, Harry Styles has already offered to make up for where Zayn leaves off, so One Direction will keep going, I have a feeling. And now it's time to go into the latest in our continuing battle against global socialism. From USA Today, Apple CEO Tim Cook, who publicly declared he was gay last year, has added his Twitter fuel to the growing bonfire over a new Indiana law that protects state business owners from being sued if they use religious beliefs as the reason for declining services to gay and lesbian people. Specifically, Cook called upon the governor of Arkansas to dismiss a similar measure that is pending there. Cook's tweets expressed dismay at Indiana's law, which was enacted Thursday by Governor Mike Pence, and urged Arkansas's top Politico Asa Hutchinson to prevent a similar law from being passed in his state. Mr. Cook, you're despicable. I wish
some other radio show
would throw you into the wood chipper. Next up from KOMO Washington, the state's top legal office is formally urging the U.S. Supreme Court to reject a lawsuit by Nebraska and Oklahoma that challenges Colorado's marijuana laws, saying it could threaten Washington state's own fledgling system for regulating pot. State Attorney General Bob Ferguson made his arguments in a friend of the court brief filed on Friday. Nebraska and Oklahoma filed a lawsuit with the High Court in December claiming that Colorado's Amendment 64, legalizing marijuana under state law, is preempted by federal drug laws. They asked the court to hear the case under its original jurisdiction over lawsuits between states. Washington state's legal brief urges the court to reject that request. And from the AP, Governor Jerry Brown signed legislation Friday that speeds up $1 billion in water infrastructure spending amid the worst drought in a generation, although much of the plan was drawn with future dry years in mind. The bills he signed, AB 91 and AB 92, will offer some aid to residents hurt by the drought, but the vast majority is expedited spending on water infrastructure. The projects will take months or even years to make a difference in California's vast water delivery system, which is struggling under a fourth year of little snow and rain in the nation's most populous state. But until then, if we've got too much water flooding the East Coast, why don't they pipe some of that over there? Oh yeah, that's right, Jerry Brown will never think of that.
You desperate guzzler of stagnant douchagua!
So, when will Jerry Brown get his priorities in line? When will Tim Cook stop being so rotten to the core about supposed gay and lesbian rights? And why do I keep getting invoices for an SUV I don't even own? Stay tuned for developments in our continuing battle against global socialism. Coming up after the break, a baddie calls the police and essentially turns himself in trying to get tax data in our continuing Crime and Pinheads coverage. Drew Carey is officiating one big fat game show wedding in our Game Show News Minute. And this week's rotating segment is all about gaming consoles and sweaty sports coaches. You're listening to the SHR Weekender, people.
Don't click away. The SHR Weekender will be right back.
I'm Corey Evan from the Evan Miller Report. Each week weeknight, I not only help Jay out in our continuing battle against global socialism and preside over lawsuits across America, but I also bring you the latest market numbers and what's going on in Hollywood, oh Hollywood. In short, I'm just trying to tie it all together so Obama's minions don't rip it apart.
Join me, Jason Miller, and Corey Evan for the Evan Miller Report, weeknights at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on SHRmedia.com. Also on the iHeartRadio app.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Once again, here's Corey Evan with the SHR Weekender on SHRmedia.com.
I thank you as always, Sackhead Sean. Sackhead Sean, one of the three Sackheads, Sean, Clint, and Sacco, on the Sackheads radio show every Wednesday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, right here on SHRmedia.com. Be sure to check him out. His show's actually pretty funny. And speaking of funny, it's time to find out who funnied up their crimes this week in Crime and Pinheads. Yes, it's that time of the week where we find out who botched their crimes so badly it was only a matter of time before you at home got to find out about it. One scammer in Florida showed just how ignorant he really is, and the Okeechobee Police Department is having the last laugh. In his 9 years with the Okeechobee PD, Detective James Pickering says he's seen it all. In addition to the usual rape, theft, and narcotics investigations, he's now looking into a strange phone call to his agency from a person claiming to be from the IRS. Detective Pickering said, quote, "Our dispatcher took the message. It said, taxes are owed, you need to contact this number to settle this debt, or good luck." The dispatcher took down the number from a Richmond, Virginia area code, and Detective Pickering called it back. He asked if the number he dialed was the IRS, and the voice responded in the affirmative. Pickering asked the individual with whom he was speaking, and the voice pressured Pickering to state his name first. Pickering responded, and then asked again with whom he was speaking. The voice said, "James Bond." "Forget about it!" Pickering laughed because it didn't sound like Sean Connery. When Pickering explained he was a police detective, the scammer hung up. Fake IRS agents are calling U.S. taxpayers at random and duping them into paying. They've ripped us off to the tune of more than $15 million. Detective Pickering notified Richmond police and the IRS of the call. So it's only a matter of time before this guy ends up busted. And when he does, I'll let you know. Next up, from the Quad City Times, state police in Pennsylvania say a trespassing suspect used his own credit card to jimmy open a garage door, then left it behind when the homeowner suddenly appeared and startled him. The important clue helped police arrest 41-year-old Brent Henry of East Butler on Saturday in Clay Township. Police tell the Butler Eagle that Henry used the card to pick the lock at a friend's mobile home. Police say the homeowner heard a noise and caught Henry, who ran away but left the credit card behind. They also say Henry told him he planned to take some gasoline for another friend's car. Online court records don't list a defense attorney to comment on the charges. Henry faces a preliminary hearing on criminal trespass and other charges April 7th. So he really is getting charged for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Get it? Charged? Come on, it's a credit card joke. Oh wait, you probably have a credit card. Never mind. But don't worry, you don't. And from the Niagara Falls Reporter, there's nothing like a good steak. And William Shorty Carson, a short-order cook at Augie's Restaurant out on Niagara Falls Boulevard, likes his USDA prime cut as much as the next man. So much so that he was willing to become a criminal just for the taste of that mouth-watering goodness. Carson, who does not drive, finished up his shift one cold night last week and caught a ride back to his Walnut Avenue apartment with one of the restaurant's accommodating owners. The owner still had some paperwork to finish up, and she returned to the eatery after dropping off the diminutive cook Carson. When the owner got back, she was approached by another employee who had not yet left for the night and had a tale to tell. Carson left his backpack in the kitchen cooking area during his shift, the employee said. Noticing that it had been left unzipped, the helpful or noisy employee decided to secure it. It was then, and only then, that the employee noticed a half-dozen New York strip steaks nestled within. The owner called the cops, who were waiting when Carson arrived for work the next day. He was arrested and taken without incident to the city courthouse, where he was booked on charges of petty larceny. Or is it petite larceny? Well, I assure you, Mr. Carson, behind bars, beef. It's not what's for dinner tonight. Dumb colonels, beware! I am watching you. I'll see you next week in Crime Pinheads. And now it's the fourth weekend of the month, ladies and gentlemen. You know what that means. It's time to take a spin on the Wheel of Misfortune! Oh yes, the Wheel of Misfortune. That's where we cover unfortunate events that have happened in the media, and I like to categorize everything just so everything flows like milk over cereal. Although one or two of you at home are probably saying this is going to flow like yogurt over gravel. Anyway, the category this month is Games and Sports. And as we go for our first spin of the wheel, we will find that it lands on the PlayStation Mobile. Earlier this month, it was announced that PlayStation Mobile was set to end later this year. The news was met, according to PlayStationLifestyle.net, with a lot of who cares and PlayStation Mobile stunk in their comment section. But in that comment section, which I'm going to post up on our Facebook page, the PlayStation loyal had very little attachment to the service. What was the reason for this, and where did the service go wrong? PlayStation Lifestyle reached out to several PlayStation Mobile developers to get their thoughts on the news and to dig a little deeper into why the service is ending. They spoke to Necrosoft Games' Brandon Sheffield, who released the unique puzzle tower defense title Gunhouse through PlayStation Mobile, about the overall accessibility that PlayStation Mobile offered. Mr. Sheffield was quoted as saying that you were free to develop it for no license fees, no fees for pushing to the console, and you got to see your game on real hardware. On the other hand, it was not extremely easy to develop for, mostly because it wasn't that well supported. Mr. Sheffield did a grear job of touching on both the pros and cons of developing for PlayStation Mobile, which you can read in that article on facebook.com/SHR Weekender. Never mind, it's back to the wheel we go, and this time we land on New York Mets pitcher Zach Wheeler. He's torn an elbow ligament according to the Star Tribune out of Fort Myers, Florida, and that's a blow to a team hoping to compete for the playoffs following Matt Harvey's return from Tommy John surgery. Mets general manager Sandy Alderson said Wheeler has a complete tear, all but guaranteeing the 24-year-old right-hander will need elbow replacement surgery and miss the 2015 season. Wheeler had MRIs of his elbow in late September, January, and Saturday, and Mets general manager Sandy Alderson said the first two did not show any ligament damage. The team didn't restrict Wheeler's throwing program during the first 3 weeks of spring training, even though there was concern about his elbow. Until Monday, Mets officials said Wheeler's last MRI was only precautionary. Wheeler said he would have been able to throw through the pain had it been the regular season. Alderson said the team was warned by doctors in January that Wheeler's elbow was a concern, and, quote, this was going to have to be managed this season. And unfortunately now, there's no way around it. Right, it's time for one more spin of the wheel, and this time it's going to land on... oh dear, it's Murray State coach Steve Prohm. He's got a message for the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee, according to USA Today. Quote, if you put us in, we'll win. I won't say we'll go to the Final Four, but I know we'd win 2 or 3 games at least. At least that's what he told USA Today Sports. Murray State in Ohio, ranked number 24 in the USA Today Sports Coaches poll last week, saw its 25-game winning streak end against Belmont on a last-second game winner in a thrilling Ohio Valley Tournament Championship game. At first glance, Murray State's 27-5 record seems worthy of an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Upon closer inspection, the racers' credentials include a ratings percentage index of 67 and a strength of schedule of 235. USA Today Sports bracketologist Shelby Mast, who had Murray State as a number 12 seed before the conference tournament loss, said, quote, there's absolutely no chance this team gets in. The committee asks teams to challenge themselves in the non-conference schedule. Whether they tried to or not is irrelevant. When the committee looks at their schedule, it's too weak. They're a great team that would have been fun in the NCAA tournament, but their best win came against Illinois State. That's one top 100 win. So Coach Prohm, why don't you go drink a little bit of water and relax? There's always next season, and I need a drink of water after that spin of the wheel of misfortune. I mean, it was lifting up that hard, it took a lot of energy out of me that time. But of course we will do the Wheel of Misfortune again next month. In the meantime, coming up after the break, Drew Carey is the top item in our Game Show News Minute. And this week, your tip of the week involves saving money as you go grocery shopping. That's all coming up after this short break.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
I'm Corey Evan, the Game Show Geek. It is March 28th, 2015. Here's your Game Show News Minute. The Price is Right will be holding a mass wedding special this coming week on March 31st. So who, you may ask, will be presiding over this bridal bonanza? None other than the host, Drew Carey. He actually took the oddly easy step of having himself ordained through one of the many online sites that do that sort of thing. Although I would personally still prefer to have my wedding in Utah. Just saying. Summer hit series Hollywood Game Night returns for a third season with new and returning celebrity players that will join in the fun as they face off in hilarious party games. Hollywood Game Night was up 7% versus the first season last season, so hopefully Jane Lynch can keep the ratings up, lest she get lynched from NBC. And when the opportunity to host a game show based on the iconic board game Monopoly came up, comedian Billy Gardell jumped at the chance. I see what they did there. They played on words, because, you know, the chance cards you land on those. Never mind. Next week on GSN, you can dive into their community chest, aka watch the new Monopoly Millionaires Club, and see who brings in the big bucks. Go to gsntv.com for details, ladies and gentlemen, and that is your Game Show News Minute for today. I hope you have a great day. Come on, let's play Monopoly. Cash, fun, and ritzy property. I'll build a house. Oh wait, we're still on air. That's right. Not a bad audition for the next season of Got Talent, eh? Never mind, I've got your tip of the week right here. Comparing the prices at the grocery store can be pretty tricky, but Reader Schmaltz has a trick to help. Look for the unit pricing. It's usually listed right next to the item pricing at most grocery stores. One thing that can throw you off is different sizes. Orange juice may be cheaper in a certain size, but it also comes in a bigger bottle than the brand next to it, so look at the price tag a little closer. It'll have, in addition to its main price, it'll also list the price per ounce or something like that, and it'll help you out to figure out exactly which one is cheaper. It's pretty small on some labels, so you may not have realized it was there. Or you might need a monocle or your bifocals to check it out. But next time you go to the grocery store, check it out. It's just a quick way to see which items will actually cost you less when you're shopping. And it also helps to check the actual sizes, because speaking of orange juice, you notice that some brands of orange juice have shrunk the bottle to 59 ounces, while one or two have decided to keep it at 64, so take that into account as well. Speaking of orange juice, I could use a good OJ about now. Whew, I'm sweating over a hot microphone, ladies and gentlemen, and I think it's time to put down the microphone for the day. I thank you for listening to the SHR Weekend. Look us up on Facebook.com/SHR Weekender and tweet us at SHR News Desk. For all of us here at SHR Media, I thank you for listening. Stay cool or not, the choice is yours. I hope you choose to stay cool.
This has been the SHR Weekender. For more information on today's program, go to shrmedia.com. Be sure to tune in next weekend. Thanks for listening.